conversation a few months back. The committee was interested in some more information, particularly around the legal and financial implications of the municipality introducing a requirement of a gas station to have a label, a warning label, with respect to the implications of the greenhouse gas emissions that are the product of the internal combustion engine. So there's a recommendation coming forward to council to have a look at whether or not this is something that Saanich wants to get into. So that will be accompanied by a lot of information, particularly with respect to a legal opinion on whether or not councils have jurisdiction in this area. So that I expect will be coming forward shortly for council's consideration. You'll recall both last year and this year, council gave its support to an environmental bill of rights and the right to a healthy environment. The committee continues to look at where Saanich is making progress in that area where there are opportunities for improvement, and that will be coming forward to council in the not too distant future for further consideration on areas where we could perhaps make some improvements in order to achieve the standard set by a right to a healthy environment. The environmental awards are coming up again. There will be a ceremony in this council chamber, the first council meeting in June, and that of course is preceded by a reception just upstairs on the second floor. There's always local pie, so I encourage everybody to come out. Folks in the audience, please come out and celebrate this year's recipients of the awards. The committee will convene next week to consider the nominations and determine who this year's recipients will be. That's always an excellent evening and always a great pleasure to celebrate those who are making a difference in Saanich for our environment. You'll recall not that long ago there was a recommendation from this committee calling on Saanich to support the inclusion of microplastics, microbeads into the list of, help me on this, Councillor Haynes, not toxic substances. What was the schedule that we were, anyway, under the Health Canada regulation that it was considered a substance that should no longer be included in commercial products. Council was joined the committee's recommendation, or supported the committee's recommendation, and did make that recommendation to Health Canada. Well, now the committee will take a look at plastic bags. Of course, yes, this went around, some of you will recall, about 10 years ago, this was a subject here in the Capital Region. 2005, there we go. So it's celebrating its 11th anniversary as an issue of discussion. It's coming back to the committee for further consideration, this time being championed by some elementary school students. So we'll certainly be pleased to hear from them. And then finally, of course, we're the Natural Areas Advisory Committee, and part of our mandate is considering grants for significant trees. And so there was quite a bit of discussion about a recent proposal or applicant to be considered for the significant tree designation. There's a fairly extensive list of significant trees in Saanich. You probably wouldn't know them just by looking at them, but as you make your way around the municipality, they are rather impressive species when you do get a chance to have a look at them, when you're made aware of them. The committee actually has very recently organized an opportunity for members who have yet to visit the significant trees to go and see a sampling. We're not going to get to all of them, but to see a sampling of those significant trees in real life, as my son likes to say. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murdoch. I'm pleased to hear that plastic bags are coming back. In 2005, it was myself and now MLA Lana Popham who brought that before the CRD, and I hope that we would reduce the use. We weren't successful at that time, but perhaps the students will have more to do. Thank you. Councillor Plante.
Thank you, Chair Dermott. I am honored to be the chair of the Healthy Saanich Advisory Committee as well as chair of the LGBTQ subcommittee. I'll report out first on Healthy Saanich. We've had approximately 2 meetings since our last report out. I also am pleased to acknowledge that Director Samborski came to the Healthy Saanich Advisory Committee, and we appreciated her interest in seeing all the workings of our Saanich committees, and it was nice to have her there and have her participate. At our most recent meeting, we had a presentation from staff members Cameron Scott and Jane Evans on the Agricultural and Food Security Task Force that is now underway. And at this early stage of the first of 3 check-ins, we were given the opportunity to give some feedback on what is exciting and what is potentially viable in the Saanich for food security, as well as what are some of the challenges around food security. And we saw a really exciting draft vision statement around food security in our region, and I would encourage council to have a look at that, or I can provide it to you, or I'm sure staff can provide it, but it's one that I think many of us will get behind. We also had a great presentation from Sean Newby, who was representing SCAN that night, but he and Marcia Henderson, who is the president of the Royal Oak Community Association, are working on developing a market at Reynolds Secondary School. And council, of course, remembers when the pocket markets were being discussed here at the bylaw change, but they brought a report to the Healthy Saanich Advisory Committee, kind of showing what they're planning on doing, and it's very exciting, and I certainly wish them well, and I think the committee did as well. We are considering as a committee having a community day, such as happened in the fall of 2013 when Councillor Paul Gerard at the time, as well as now Councillor Haynes as chair of SCAN, had a community day, and so Healthy Saanich hasn't had one since 2013, so we are entertaining the idea of doing that. A couple of topics that emerged were affordable housing and well, real estate, but really I think it was in the context of affordable housing. So we will give that further consideration. I'd like to just touch briefly, if I can, on the LGBTQ subcommittee's workings. We meet monthly. We haven't met since the last time that this council undertook its decision to have further study upon the recommendations that were made, so I'm looking forward to sharing that information back. We did have a tour of the Gordon Head Recreation Centre, and Gordon Head Recreation Centre, like our other facility for swimming, have universal change rooms. And so the presentation by the manager of that facility, I think, was very inspiring for members of the LGBTQ community and committee members because of the progressive attitude that already exists at those facilities. And an example, just for everyone to kind of have a real rubber hits the road example, was the question that was asked: what would happen if somebody who was with a family was complaining that somebody as an individual was using the universal change room because they were self-identifying with the LGBTQ community? And we were told that staff would actually have a conversation with that resident about how these were a universal change room, and that universal change room included members of the LGBTQ community wanting to be in a private setting for changing. And I think many of the nodding heads that I saw were a sign of appreciating some of the good work that Saanich does already. This coming Monday, so this coming Thursday, we are having the Tourism Victoria CEO, or is it CAO? I'm not sure. AO, thank you. Mr. Paul Nursey is coming to discuss how Victoria is marketed to the LGBTQ community around the world, as well as potentially hear some suggestions on how it could be marketed abroad. So that's an information gathering activity. And the committee, as I think Councillor Workland's words when we were talking about the notion of how many recommendations are going to be coming forward from the LGBTQ subcommittee that we established, it's actually interesting. Almost as an adjunct activity of the LGBTQ subcommittee, were 2 or 3 academics who were on this committee who said, you know what we really need is a needs assessment. What's needed in Saanich to support those of the LGBTQ communities in Saanich? And so these members have taken it upon themselves to look at the feasibility of doing a needs assessment. And they have access to university grant money, so they're not going to come back to Saanich and say, could we please have some more money? And so we're looking at doing a needs assessment where we, at the end of that, come forward with a set of recommendations. And I think that will probably tie into the end of this year, because as you all will likely remember, the LGBTQ subcommittee is on a 1-year trial basis, and we will determine as a council whether or not it's a 1-year thing or if it keeps going. So that set of recommendations, I think, will be very useful. Just a last comment, I'd like to just go back, just briefly, this is the last one, back to the Healthy Sandwich. I forgot to comment that we are looking forward to a presentation from Mr. Rob Wixon, President of Orange Tillaberi Community Association. He is coming not to talk about the overpass, but rather to talk about a report that's been generated out of his community association around homelessness and some recommendations. So he'll be coming to our May meeting, and I would welcome anyone who is interested in coming to that to hear his recommendations and to speak further to his report. That's all I have, and as always, I would welcome questions from the public or from my colleagues about the activities of the committees I chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Platt. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair Dermond. So I'm privileged to chair the Planning, Transportation and Economic Development Advisory Committee, and we started the year on a transit theme, looking at regional trails and the draft Regional Trails Management Scheme presented by John Hicks, which I know some of my colleagues are very familiar with the idea of our trail system being a very key component of our transit by bike and by foot. It's very interesting plans there. We're going to touch base back again in the year on that to see how that's unfolding. On the economic side, we had a presentation on food trucks, and in consultation with our staff on planning, and we understand the bylaw around that. We're going to try and come forward with some suggestions on how food trucks might be integrated into the offerings in Saanich. We appreciate the advice from staff on that. Then we looked at Victoria Placemaking, which is a group that enables you to test run some changes in the street by putting down for a day or a week or a longer period of time, up to months, changes in traffic flow and people flow and use to see if that's a viable option in a community. And I know the staff have already picked up on some of those themes and that Councillor Dermond is familiar with that. We also had a presentation from Councillor Dermond on the natural cities as an approach to city design. This was a two-part piece where he presented the natural cities concepts at the one PTED meeting, and then skipped a month and came back and presented it as an applied approach to the Douglas Corridor. So the committee had a lot of information and conversation around that, and we did appreciate staff being there as well at the same time. We had a whole meeting dedicated to the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, and I did appreciate the presence of staff there, and that was an opportunity also for members of the business community, the economic ecosystem along the Shelbourne Valley, to come in and talk to how some of the changes they felt could impact their businesses, and gave that feedback to staff. And once again, it was great to have staff there and to have that opportunity for that connection. Rob Wixon also came and presented the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan from his Communities Association's view, and that was well received. We also had a presentation from a group that is looking at the Shelbourne Valley, aside from just being a transit corridor or a business corridor, as an innovation corridor. And that's some documentation I've got in. It's off the desk of anyone on staff or even on council, and it's something that needs to get buy-in from the University of Victoria. Are they looking for an off-campus hub? That whole valley has several campuses for high schools and colleges. It's a natural centre, so that's something that I'm going to look at a little bit with the University of Victoria and some other players, and then bring it back to the committee and see if that's something that we want to bring some information to council over. In our May PTED meeting, we have a presentation from the Regional Housing Trust Fund, which I'm the Vice Chair of. And what that presentation is going to do, it's something I asked them to do a couple of months ago, which is to do a full wrap-up of all the housing assisted programs that there are in the region, from co-op right through to anything you can imagine. So we did have the presentation at the CRD Regional Housing Trust Fund Committee. Then we'll bring that to PTED, and it dovetails quite nicely with the report from Rob Wixon's Community Association. So I'm expecting Rob will be there to listen to that. But also have a presentation from a group that's concerned with affordable housing in the Cordova Bay, and the opportunity perhaps to have that plaza that's undeveloped but is looking for a development opportunity, perhaps linked to some affordable housing. There are some community issues there, that's unresolved, so that's sort of a wish versus what might truly happen. But the point is the discussion would help us flesh out some of the concepts that we could look at as a municipality. We're also interestingly enough on the economic side having a sustainable farming presentation by these groups that are doing micro farming inside environmentally controlled containers, green containers they're called, and the yield of salad crops and other crops from these units is quite substantial, and you basically just plonk them anywhere and you walk away and leave them after you've seeded them. They self-water, self-heat, self-CO2, etc., and you come back in their crops. So that's a new style of urban farming which we're looking forward to seeing. Also, I should like to close on 2 points. Pickleball. The Prospect Lake Community Association, I believe, has been trying to contact, because they'd like the 2 tennis courts at the Royal Oak School converted to pickleball, because they love the idea of the fence around, so they don't have to keep running away and chasing the ball. But yes, pickleball is coming into that space that would formerly used by tennis. And of course, as the chair of PTED, I was quite interested at the cycling festival when the chair of the BIPEC committee couldn't make it, so we took it on ourselves to go around all the stations and get the stamp from all the stations to show the support from PTED for the cycling festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor James. I am chair of the BIPEC committee, and I'm chair of the BIPEC committee. Thank you, and I was at the celebration. I'm glad you did. No, we won't get into a debate on that one. The BIPEC committee has been very active in the last while. We have been monitoring with engineering the completion of the Tillicum-Blandford Complete Streets project, which is the latest of the Complete Street projects that we have seen in Saanich. It is the committee's view that these projects on the part of engineering represent a big step forward, and actually the very best of what we have done to create better pedestrian and cycling facilities on the selected streets, and also in the process to actually make the streets much more pleasant to live beside, and that's a significant benefit as well. The committee, when a project is completed or near complete, the committee members go and cycle and walk the street, and in some cases drive as well, to see what is on the ground feel of what has been accomplished with the project. The committee then tries to make suggestions to engineering within the framework, and we think they are very, very good projects, as to how the next project might be improved or what could be incorporated to move us up even a further level. We have been active with the Mackenzie Admirals Highway Interchange and have had a couple of presentations from the Ministry of Transportation. We also had a presentation from Mr. Wixon, who is obviously a very active citizen. We agreed with Mr. Wixon that his option which he had developed an option different from that which the 2 highways were considering, should be given full consideration and examination by the ministry, and did actually pass a motion that would have come before council recommending such. However, that has really been superseded by the fact that the ministry has now decided on which option they are going to go with, and are pretty much full steam ahead. The committee appreciates the fact that this process will create, I guess, safer cycling and pedestrian facilities through the area of the interchange. However, the committee did point out to the ministry that the new facilities would be considerably less direct than that which exists there at the present time. That seems to have somewhat fallen on deaf ears, because we don't see any changes in the subsequent announcement by the ministry. The committee has been involved with the CRD in looking at the issue of paving unpaved sections of the Lochside Trail. The Lochside Trail has become a major commuter route for both pedestrians, but especially for cyclists who are coming in to Victoria or Saanich for work and use that as a way of commuting by bike. There is an issue, of course, that those parts of the trail are also used by horseback riders, and they value that as a recreation facility for their activity. So there is a debate going on as to how both of those needs can be accommodated. Hopefully we can find a solution that will allow both groups to be satisfied, but it is not going to be easy because there is a limited amount of right-of-way. The reason for paving, of course, is that in the wintertime, those sections that are unpaved become less attractive and also less safe, especially for cyclists who are going through them. So we will monitor that and continue to provide input on it. We are looking forward sometime in the not far distant future for a presentation from Engineering's active transportation plan, and that will be looking at how active transportation, primarily being walking and cycling, of course, there are others, skateboarding or whatever it might be, can be best accommodated in the municipality in the future. We hope to see, as does the whole region, the mode share for walking, cycling, and taking transit to go up in future years, and the mode share for single occupancy vehicles to go down. If we are going to do that, we will have to emulate places like Copenhagen that actually has at the present time within their city limits 55% of all trips are by bike. Now the chair of their, at least I guess the CAO of their cycling department recently did a presentation in which he said, if you want to do this, you must find a way for cyclists or pedestrians to go from A to B in a direct, comfortable, and attractive manner. And that's something that we're going to have to look at. We have been very active over the last year, in fact longer than that, in the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, and the committee brought a motion when the draft plan was first brought to council, saying we need to do something to accommodate cycling on that corridor. It is the natural cycling corridor, and indeed needs better pedestrian facilities, but a natural cycling corridor for all that side of Saanich. And I don't know if members of the audience have cycled it, but in its present configuration, it's not very pleasant to do that. So as a consequence of that and concerns of members of council, two options for improving facilities were drafted, put before the public for consultation. That consultation is finished, and option one, which provided improved facilities on parts of the corridor, but not all, and option two that provided at least a bike lane completely through the whole length of the corridor. And we will be looking forward to the report from staff, what is the result of public consultation in that respect. And finally, we are looking forward to being very involved in the Douglas Street corridor study, which is just getting underway. It is my own personal opinion that Douglas Street is the #1 location in the region for new, livable, sustainable, and attractive, denser communities that will allow us to avoid continued sprawl with the problems of chewing up green space, creating congestion, and adding to climate change problems. So we hope that we will come up with something that is really innovative and really leading edge in terms of what we accomplish there. And it does affect cycling and walking. If you can live within walking distance of all the things you need, you probably walk. If you were to live in the Douglas corridor, you'd probably have a 5 or 6 minute cycle to somewhere downtown, and that's easy. If you're living way out on the peninsula or out in the western communities, a little less attractive to do so. So we look forward to seeing what will come from that. And that's my report, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn the council portion.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I'll now call to order the Committee of the Whole. We only have one item on the committee of the whole tonight, and the procedure we will follow is as follows. First of all, I'll ask the item be introduced by the clerk. I will give the council an opportunity to ask questions of staff. When that is finished, I will ask the applicant to come forward and provide a presentation to council. Once that presentation is finished, I will open up for members of the public to speak to council on the item if they so wish. Again, we ask for your name and address if you are speaking, and ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. And I've already explained the lighting system there that lets you know how you stand for time. I would suggest or indicate, please, that you make sure that you say everything you want to say when you come up to the mic, because our procedures bylaw allows only one time at the mic for each citizen. And finally, if you have any questions, I will make note of them and get them answered for you when public input is complete. When public input is complete, I will turn the matter over to council for a decision. Madam Clerk, if I could have the item tonight introduced, please.
The item is for 761 Enterprise Crescent. There's a report of the Director of Planning recommending that council amend the zoning bylaw to add a new M3B/D Industrial Park Brewery /Distillery Zone. Rezone the property from Zone M3 Industrial Park to the new Zone M3B/D and approve development permit amendment DPA 00860 to permit assembly and retail sales for proposed brewery/distillery, and variances are also requested for signage and parking.
Thank you, and I understand there's no additional correspondence. Thank you very much. Questions of staff, council? Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could to the planner. I would like to know, I know we have no details about the signage, but I'm concerned around the signage that's facing the highway. I would want to see like the blinking one in front of the arena. So I'm just trying to figure out, could you tell me what the restrictions would be? I know they have to meet the lighting requirements we have around the observatory, but I'm thinking of distractions.
The animated signs would not be permitted. We allow digital signs, but they only are allowed to rotate so often, basically once per 24-hour period. So you wouldn't be having that. You would potentially have a back illuminated sign, and again, as you note in the report, the Ministry of Transport has the same concerns. They don't want a distraction. So I would suggest that prior to public hearing, you may wish to ask the applicant to clarify how they see that sign being developed. There's the possibility always of using front lit, some sort of gooseneck lighting system, but again, I would refer to the applicant to elaborate.
If I could, another question. And I don't know why this is, but maybe you can explain it to me. Why do we not have sidewalks in an industrial park? Because if we're getting more of these type of things, people may actually walk from the neighborhoods to go to the tasting room. So, can someone explain that?
Through the chair to Councilor Brown, it would be probably at the time a subset of the Schedule H bylaw and requirement of that type of this classification of roadway would have been specified for a sidewalk. Certainly you raised some good merits about the need for a sidewalk in this area, and as we move to more pedestrian-oriented communities, sidewalks on most streets are warranted.
Okay, and the other thing that was in the report was around this cul-de-sac or this crescent. It's in my neighborhood. It is constantly cars, and I'm sure it's staff within the facilities around. I see that engineering doesn't recommend time parking. Can you?
Through the chair to Councilor Brown, you're correct. This is an area where we've seen high demand of on-street parking, particularly probably from the industrial staff members that are present in these buildings. We've had complaints within the residential community about parking and how it moves into some of those residential streets. We would see that this would directly impact some of that parking and subsequently may push a few more parking spots into that community.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pine.
Thank you, Chair Dermond. Just a question through you to our Director of Directoration of Planning. I see in the report that the retail and tourism components will be open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Does council have within its purview to limit those hours, or is that what's permitted through another level of governance, or is that a SANAGE component, please?
As part of the rezoning, you certainly could set hours of operation. If that's of interest to you, I can provide greater legal clarity at the time this goes to public hearing, assuming you forward it.
Thank you. I think I may save my questions to the applicant on this matter. I was just curious whether or not it was within our purview at this point to set hours, or if there was another level that was responsible. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and provide council with a presentation.
Hello, my name is Graham McAloney, and I'm the president of the Victoria Caledonian Distillery. I'm accompanied tonight by our architect, Eric Barker, who is also here to field any questions that you may have. I had, in consultation with Eric, been led to believe that a